Welcome to Ordinary Discourse with Caroline Ross and special guest KD Tighe. KD is a private vegan chef, an activist, and entrepreneur. KD, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'm sure a lot of people are interested. How do you become a chef?
I was studying kinesiology and I wanted to be an athletic therapist, and then the plan was to go to medical school and become an orthopedic surgeon. So I kind of wanted to work with athletes. I've been an athlete I've been playing softball for 20 years. Wanted to kind of like take that into like my life passion, but then I realized 10 years of school doesn't really sound that interesting to me. So food was much better for me. And I just love food. I've always just picked up a kitchen job at a steakhouse in Port Moody. I started as a dishwasher, and within 6 months I was like running the kitchen.
When did the veganism go into your career?
So 3 years ago, I was working on a yacht, and I was the head chef there, and we went traveling for about 4 months, and the couple who run the boat were dairy-free and only ate meat so often. So once I wasn't eating dairy for so long and I came back from my trip and I tried to like go back to my normal diet, I realized I was like lactose intolerant.
So let's go back to this boat thing.
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting. I just finished watching the 8th season of Below Deck.
Yeah. I know. Everyone always asks me about the show, and I'm like, that's not what my experience was like. But I'm sure it's like that in other catering and like charters and stuff like that. But actually, it was a fluke that I even like landed that gig. I was living with some friends, and I had been the sous chef at this fine dining restaurant in Port Moody for almost a year, and I got fired actually. And then I was working at Cactus Club with my roommate because I just needed a job, obviously, to like sustain things. And he was like, "Do you want to be a chef on a yacht?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I found this Craigslist ad." And I was like, yeah, sure, send it to me. So I like read this Craigslist ad. I'm like, this is no way this is real. Like, absolutely, okay, whatever, but sure. So I sent my resume in. Soon enough, I get a phone call from this recruiter, and she's like, "Hey, we got your resume, and we think you'd be a great candidate for this job. Like, do you want to come meet the owners of the boat?" And I was like, "This is real?" Like, okay. So I get in my car, and I drive out to like Anasis Island because the boat wasn't in the water. It was being renovated before the trip. And so go to the boat. It's like hanging in the midair. Is like super cool.
How big was it?
It's about 112 feet long, and I think it's like 5,000 square feet of living space, but don't quote me. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. It's big. It has like 4 bedrooms, a master bedroom, three decks. Like
hot tubs.
Yeah, hot tub. We had 2 jet skis, kayaks, and paddleboards, and like all these are like really cool toys and stuff. And so I go to the boat, and I'm like talking to the owner and his partner, and I just felt really out of my comfort zone on this boat that costs more than my entire existence. So I'm talking to them, and we're like getting into it, and by the end of the day, like they were like, "We think you're perfect." And they took me along. So I got to live on this yacht for the summer, which was like really cool. We left Vancouver in early June, and we were gone from Vancouver for 3.5 months. And we traveled all over BC. We started in Vancouver, went up the mainland to Prince Rupert. We crossed to Haida Gwaii. So I went to Haida Gwaii, which was like...
Oh, I want to go there so bad.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Hands down, it's like one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. We did 15,000 nautical miles. So I did from Haida Gwaii, we crossed back over, and then we did the East Coast Passage of Vancouver Island. So from like Port Hardy all the way through, and then to all the Gulf Islands, and then ended in Victoria and came back to Vancouver. And then I left in November. So I was with them for about 6 months.
It was just the couple on the boat? They didn't rent it out to anyone?
No, so we didn't have any like private charters. Steve is the guy's name. His son, Evan, was on the boat all summer long, and then he had his 2 other children. They came on and off the boat throughout the summer, and then a lot of their friends would come on. So, like, the kids brought all their friends for a weekend, and I think they came up twice throughout the summer, and then Steve would have, like, some of his friends on the boat and stuff. So we did have, like, guests that would come on.
Yeah,
totally.
So you traveled around for 3.5 months,
Yep.
and then what did you do after that until November?
I was still working on the yacht, so I was still working on the boat in the city. So I was like doing meal prep for them and like cooking for them, and then just kind of like taking care of the boat. And
when it was docked here, did you live on it?
Yeah, I did. I lived on the boat the whole time I was working for them. So I lived in Cole Harbour on the yacht for a couple months while we were back in Vancouver.
Was it difficult to cook for vegans when you weren't vegan yourself? Like,
no, not really. And like they weren't vegan, but like they just like didn't eat certain things. You know, we're out in the middle of the ocean, and the captain, he pulled in like a 22-pound salmon, and we like caught crabs and spot prawns and like different things that were like really native to our part of the world, which I think is really cool that you get to experience like local food on that kind of level. Like we went foraging for oysters and clams ourselves and stuff. And
so you said you wouldn't cook with meat again and stuff, but would you do the oysters and freshly caught salmon and stuff?
This is like one of the things that I've actually been thinking a lot about in the last like 6 months, is because oysters have a place in the world too. For instance, like with oysters, if you took 2 tanks of water and you had one tank that was like had ocean water and had no oysters in it, it would stay kind of cloudy and murky and like whatever. But if you put the other tank in with, you know, a layer of oysters, the oysters actually filter the water. So their job is to clean the ocean. So I think there's just like sustainability aspect to it where it's like we are producing so much of everything, like not just like land animals, but like sea animals as well. And I think that's the issue, is that it's like we're just producing it too much. I would maybe eat them if I caught them and they were like natural, but at the same time, like I understand that they have a job to do.
So yeah, so even though oysters can't feel pain and stuff, they still have a
place in this world, and they have a place, a job to do. I was a part of the Meet the Victim action last year, so that was the big action. There was like 200 activists that swarmed a hog farm in Abbotsford, and ever since then, like I just can't even look at it the same, because I was just like, no.
So what's the swarming? Kate, tell us about this.
So
how does it start?
Yeah.
What's the point of swarming?
Yeah, swarming, I guess, is like kind of an intense word. There was like a group of activists that got together, and 75 of us decided to go inside the farm to document footage to like show what's happening.
You weren't invited on?
We were not invited on. We were trespassing, yes. And so that was fun. Yeah.
I like how you hid behind your mic.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no.
Like you're hiding from the people
I know.
outside.
I was like, oh my gosh, don't touch me. It's fine. No. And so, yeah, it was like a really awesome experience overall. Obviously, like what's happening there is very sad, but, you know, we had the opportunity to like really make a statement in some ways, right? The SPCA ended up opening up their investigation of the hog farm again, which is really cool.
Is
and,
this hog farm known to have bad practices?
Yes, there was like definitely some, I think, background information prior to this action. I don't have all the information. It's very like secret, obviously, because like it's not something that's supposed to happen. The experiences I had while I was there, you know, all these people showing up and being like, you know, we're being the voices for these animals. It was like really eye-opening, and it really hit me last year after that when I came home. It was on my birthday too, which was actually kind of fun. So it was like my birthday present to myself was to like go and do this action. I'd never done anything involving animal activism before. I just showed up with these people and put on a suit and charged into a farm, so that was cool.
What kind of suit?
Just like a biohazard suit, and like we had to like wear masks and stuff because it's still considered like a food safe area. Okay, so gross. So
this farmer, is it? I'm assuming it's a huge factory farm.
It was a bit more of like a small mom and pop operation actually. It was just like a large, like a farm. It was like a brick building. They had like two buildings with all of the.
Imagine like what they were thinking when they saw like 75 vehicles.
They had no idea we were there. We showed up on buses actually. We had 3 buses, and we just like unloaded from a bus.
They probably thought it was a tourist thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they knew. It was like 4:00 in the morning, and we just like we showed up real early and just was like, hey.
So you ran onto the farm in these suits. You took video and footage.
Yeah.
I guess, but nothing was happening on the farm.
Nothing was necessarily happening on the farm because it's not a slaughterhouse. So it's just where the pigs are raised. So we went into the farm, into the barn to go in to like see the inside and like look where like the baby pigs were living and stuff, but 15 of us didn't make it inside. So there was we were called the inside outside crew. So there was like the inside crew and the outside crew, because about 120 people were standing on the street protesting.
Okay.
Like
at 4 a.m.
At like from like 5:30 in the morning till probably like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It was like a 12-hour day. So there was all those people on the street, and then like the 15 of us were kind of like on the outside of the farm, and the farmers were not happy we were there. They were pretty pissed. You know, we were trying to take some video from the windows and stuff, and I actually ended up getting sprayed with fertilizer water. And again, like I mentioned, I'm allergic to pigs, so I broke out in like a terrible rash. It was awful. Yeah, I can't wear we got t-shirts that said like Meet the Victims on them, and I can't wear my shirt still. I've washed it like 20 times, and because of the fertilizer water, I still get a rash on my back from it. So that was pretty interesting. But
they sprayed you with fertilizer?
Yeah, they sprayed all the activists that were on the outside of the farm with water. Most of us. There's actually a really cool picture of me on my Instagram. It's not a cool picture, but I mean, it's kind of cool. I don't know. It's like, I'm just like doused in water and you can see in my face. I'm just like, man, I did not want to get sprayed with water, and like, screw you for being a dick. It actually like got posted on like the Nar City and stuff like that. They used it as like a
photo of you.
Yeah, which was like really cool.
Worth it. That's something I'm trying to get into this year, is the activism.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find some time for that. I'm in the groups on Facebook, and I keep like going to go, and then I don't go. But
sometimes it's hard because they kind of post them a little bit late. They'll be like, it's like 3 days out, and I'm like, I already have like not necessarily plans, but like something that's like I can't just like change,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like if I was just hanging out with friends and I really wanted to go, I'd either bring my friends with me or whatever.
up
But it's like,
late
oh,
or-
I have to work, or I have like, you know, I play sports still. I have a softball tournament or something that I just can't get out of.
It's always on Saturdays too.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't work weekends, which is totally great. But it's just sometimes I'm like, oh, I just can't this time. So I'm also trying to get out to that kind of stuff more often, but it can be a bit hard.
I went to this meeting. There was a speaker, and he like taught people how to speak at the Anonymous.
Oh, cool.
But then I got in a fight with him.
Oh no.
know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
It
no.
was terrible. It
Yeah.
was about buying secondhand leather products.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
sometimes I just can't find what I need in
Yeah.
like a brand new
I-
vegan product. And
yeah.
he was like arguing that it promotes leather products. But then I was like, well, you have fake leather shoes on.
Yeah.
Like, does that not do the same? And he's like, oh, I guess it does.
Yeah, I think if you're buying it secondhand, that's awesome. I've done some research because I was trying to do like more zero waste stuff too at my own house. There's enough T-shirts in this world in thrift shops to like give everybody a T-shirt in the world.
Yeah.
It's like nuts.
And
like,
it goes in the garbage.
and it just goes in the garbage,
Yeah,
right? And,
all
like,
of it.
It's all of this like consumerism and this like, you know, mass production of everything in our lives that really truly is like the downfall of a lot of different things. But yeah, I try to, you know, go thrift shopping and stuff too.
There's a zero waste restaurant in Vancouver. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, there's two companies that I know personally that do it. Eat the Dishes is they do like edible soup cups, and
Okay.
it's my dear friend Marisa who runs the company. Like one of my closest friends. She's wonderful, and they're doing amazing like initiatives with the zero waste world. And then there's the Kind Cafe up on Main Street. They're
That's the
also
one I heard about.
yeah, they're a zero
Okay.
waste cafe, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff too. And it's really interesting to see like how easy it was for them to do that. I've met with Sam before and stuff and had some conversations with her and seen the kitchen and stuff. And it's super cool. It's a lot easier than people think. And it's just getting that relationship with like suppliers of being like, okay, well, we don't want something that comes in plastic. So how do we go about this? Right. And just like building those like connections.
So you can
and
eat the cup.
Eat the Dishes. Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's so
super
cool. What
It's
does
like
it taste like?
It's like a bread cup.
Okay, so it's
It's
not
like
like a hard
It's a breadstick.
plastic
It's a
something you can eat.
breadstick with a bowl in it. That's literally the way I would describe
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, and like her soup is also delicious, so it's just like an all around great experience. And she makes these amazing like cloth napkins out of recycled T-shirts. Her mom and her basically sew these napkins, and they give you a napkin with your cup, so then you get like a reusable napkin as well.
So this non-waste lifestyle.
Yeah.
Do you live this at home and stuff? Do you have a partner? How are they with the non-waste lifestyle?
I try to do my best at home. It's not the easiest thing, and I just with looping back into like the self-care and stuff, I'm like, I'm just trying to feed myself right now, so I'm doing the best that I can with that. I do have a partner. We're long distance, and we're actually non-monogamous, which is really fun. So I have a couple partners. My long-term partner lives in Seattle, so we do long distance, and then my other partner is also vegan, and so that's super fun because we get to cook together and stuff. They both like do their best too. Like I think we're all just trying to be as like, you know, environmental friendly or ethical and all that stuff, but neither of them eat meat, which is nice, so that kind of helps.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
if you're kind of vegan, you do care about the environment
Yeah.
somewhat, either
Totally.
on purpose or by accident
Yeah,
after a few years.
I think it's like a cycle, right? Like I said, like I started because I was lactose intolerant, it's healthy, and then I learned about the animals, and then I realized like the environmental impact. And I think a lot of people kind of go through that same like, you know, cycle of like it just like gets deeper and deeper as your knowledge becomes, you know, you become more aware of like all the things that it affects and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, hang on. This non-monogamous thing?
Yeah.
Let's go more into
Yeah,
that. Let's unpack that.
yeah, fair enough.
This sounds interesting.
Yeah, so the last, like, I don't know, my partner and I met in August, and we were dating for a little bit, and we decided to, like, open up our relationship, and so now we do non-monogamy, and it's, like, been a really cool experience so far. I mean, there's definitely been some things that have been, like, tricky and, like, kind of, like, learning more about that, but...
How do you differentiate your partners? Is it, like, partner one, partner two?
No,
or?
they're all independent, and they're all... like equal, if that makes sense. So there's not like one person that's like, you know,
not
higher.
sister wives. with,
No,
like, a main wife.
it's not like you're number 1 and you're number 7. Like that's not how
Okay.
it works. No, so no, they're all, for me, it's all equal. And they're independent of like who they are and whatnot. So it's still pretty new for me. So it's been a lot of like
Yeah.
learning.
Was it your choice to open up the relationship?
It was a mutual decision. Like they kind of brought it up, and I was like, yeah, this sounds like a cool idea. And like, so we just like, you know, working that together. And for me, it ties back into like this whole self-development thing. It's giving me the space to really focus on myself. So like, I like to say that I'm my own primary partner. Like I needed to like, put them on everybody on a number scale. Like I'm number 1, just like learning so much about myself through these experiences and like ways to communicate and like different levels of like how to care for different people and like learn about different people and even really just like learn about myself and like the things that I need from different relationships and whether it's like romantic or like a friendship or whatever, right? So it's been very intriguing. So far, it's been wonderful.
So your local partner is okay with this? How did you find them?
We met on Tinder, of course,
Okay.
because every millennial meets on Tinder. And yeah, no, she's also non-monogamous, so it's been really interesting. And I've met a couple other people who were, you know, poly or have been poly for years. So like there's different levels of this too. Like when it
What's the difference between poly and non-monogamous?
so non-monogamy I feel like is like you are seeing lots of different people, but you're not
Okay.
necessarily in like actual like relationships with people. Like it could be like more casual, and with polyamory it's like you have multiple committed partners, if that makes sense.
Okay, so that sounds like a lot more work.
It's I think it's just a different level of it. It's all kind of
Okay.
umbrella termed, I think, polyamory, like with non-monogamy and things like that,
Okay.
from my understanding. Again, I'm not an expert, but like that's kind of like what I get from it.
Do you think you would close down your relationship in the future, or do you like having it open?
For right now it's good, so who
Yeah.
knows. Like I mean, I think there's like this like whole pressure from society of like, this is what love is supposed to look like, here's a Hollywood movie about it. So I think it's kind of like breaking those barriers and like really just breaking it down to the fact that like we're all trying to kind of figure out who we are as people, and
Yeah.
how we connect with people is so different than this idea that we've been accustomed to, especially like in the queer world. It's like a whole nother like envelope of love and things like that, I think. And that definition I think is changing so much, and it's like a spectrum. It's like I can love you so much, but I might not be interested in you sexually, but I care about you, or like vice versa. I'm like, maybe I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I think you're like really attractive, but like our emotional connection is not the same, right? So it's been a really interesting like fine line to like walk and stuff, but it's definitely taught me a lot about like how I view others and like what does attraction mean? Like, is attraction necessarily only towards like I have a sexual attraction to you, or like, okay, I have an attraction to you, like what is it about you, but like I don't really see you sexually. But attraction can be about healing too, so it can be that emotional connection of like you've met somebody who like really understands you, and it might not go to that next level, but like you have an attraction to them because like they bring something to the table for you, right? And so
Yeah,
it's been
sometimes,
cool.
You're like, do I want to be friends with that person?
Yeah.
Or like, do I want to be them?
Yeah.
Or do I want to kiss them?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like, oh man, these are feelings, and we gotta figure this out.
Yeah,
right?
like how do I
Yeah, how do you like,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, decompartmentalize.
Decompartmentalize these feelings.
Yeah, it's kind of like navigating it all
get
too,
it.
right? Of just like, I mean, like, oh, like, okay, cool. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Will it be forever? I don't know, but for now, it's working.
Okay, so let's talk about the
Yeah.
self-development. What made you want to focus on yourself?
I mean, in the last like 3 or 4 years, I would say I've just been through like a lot of different situations, like whether it was like, you know, a breakup with a partner, or a job situation where it was either not a good job or I got fired or something along those lines. And all these little different things have like kind of added up and tack on a little bit of childhood trauma and like all those things. And I just found myself sitting here and being like, who are you? And like, why are you like this? And like, and all these different aspects. And something that I've really come to terms with this year is I have an eating problem. Like I was like definitely struggling with eating in the last like year. And so when I kind of sat with that and I was like, okay, well, like you're not fueling yourself, but you're feeding all these people and you're doing all these amazing things. Like I wasn't sustaining myself in order to be able to do those things properly. And I was like, okay, so how do we do that so that we can continue doing these things that we love? I'm going to take the time to really figure out why I function the way I function and like what makes me me, because in that and like having that balance within myself, I will achieve these goals that I want to do, and I'll be able to do all these things that I want to do, but I have to put myself first right now. So last year it was just like after the business closed and like I had ended a partnership in the like earlier in the year and stuff. I took all of that and I was like, okay, all of this energy I've been putting into everybody else now needs to go to myself, and like let's get some consistency and balance in me so that I can do all these things.
Was that difficult financially?
Yes and no. I landed my job currently in December and
At the Glory
Juice
Juice,
Co.
okay, yeah.
And they're so wonderful, and like my work-life balance has been absolutely amazing since starting there.
Mm-hmm.
Closing the business, I took a little bit of a hit financially, obviously, like not only losing money from closing the business, but also like that income that I was making, you know, I was helping and stuff like that. But for me, money's never really been like the main goal of my life. Like I want to be comfortable and I want to be able to like save and like make sure I'm, you know, prepared and to the best of my abilities. But my happiness is the fuel of my life, and the bank. I like the bank of happiness a lot better than the actual bank. So doing things that make me happy and like going forward, that's been my thing, is like I'm not doing anything that doesn't bring me joy, because I just don't have time for things that don't make me happy anymore.
You've gone through a huge like change in the past year.
Yeah, totally. And like along with that too, I came out as non-binary last year, so I had a relationship end in like early May, and when that ended, I was like, okay, what's the first thing we're going to work on? I looked at it and I was like, you've been contemplating your gender for a long time. It was actually on the yacht the first time. I was like, so that's 3 years ago. I was like, I don't know what this means. I'm not really sure. And then I was like, oh, we have so many other things to think about. We're going to put that back on the back burner, kind of like put it back in the box and think about it later. And when I opened up that box and I started doing research and I kind of like looking into other people in the queer community and the things like that, and non-binary came up, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then like I like learned more and more about it, and I was like, wow, I really feel like this might be something that I identify as, and started getting my friends to use like they, them instead of like she, her. And, you know, as the months went by and stuff, I was like, oh, this is definitely for me. And like, this is definitely how I feel. And like, kind of been exploring that sense of gender and like what that looks like, and like learning that I was non-binary basically like allowed me to give the space so that I could discover the more feminine and masculine side of myself and realize that like I don't have to be one or the other. Like I don't need to be like super masculine presenting and like or feminine presenting. I cut my hair off, which was like the best decision I ever made. I had like long blonde curly hair like down to my hips.
I didn't recognize you after you cut it off.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah,
I was so embarrassed.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, that's so good.
You're like, hi, Caroline. I'm like,
Yeah. You're just like, who is this stranger and why are they talking to me? That was really like affirming for me and things like that, and also came to the realization that I'd like to get top surgery. And so that kind of all ties back into like, you know, learning more about myself and falling into this like more comfortable situation with my gender, and also is like kind of tied into like my eating problems and all of the things. Like I am literally like the epitome of an East Van queer. I am a vegan. I am non-binary. I am like non-monogamous. I'm all these different things. Yeah,
cats?
I have a cat. Yes. Well, I co-parent a cat with my best friend.
Of course.
And he's the best. He's so cute. I've been such a free spirit person my whole life, but now I realize that my energy is so important. The amount of love and light that I have, it's been diminished a little bit over the years just because other people have like walked in and taken it from me, and I'm like, okay, well, this is mine and not everybody gets to have it. And
do you feel like it's stronger this past year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like a little bit bright and shiny right now.
You're kind of glowing.
Yeah, it's thanks. It's like one of those weird things that's actually timed out really well. The last 2 weeks have been like wonderful, and I think that's the cool part too about the social media is that my ability to talk about what I'm going through, and like, you know, I opened up about my eating disorder, I've opened up about my non-binary, like being non-binary and all these different things. I'm hoping that it sets an example to others so that they should be able to like have their voice too. I actually told my parents at Christmas time this year, so that was fun.
Oh, that was pretty recent.
Yeah, it was on Christmas, Boxing Day.
It
went well, actually. I was surprised. My parents are like wonderful humans. I love them dearly. They love me so much. And when I told them I was a lesbian, I brought home my college girlfriend and I was like, hey guys, this is my girlfriend. And they were like, we have known. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, like they were like, we've known we've known longer than you have. And I was like, that's fair. Anyways.
Was that a little disappointing? Like, did you want to do like the shock with them? Or?
Well, my mom was upset. She cried. She was like, you're never going to have grandkids. And I was like, Mom, there's a million ways I could have kids. I was like, you have 3 children who can offer that to you if I don't. You know, I've been out for like 10 years and then they were fine. And then this has been like totally like, they're just like, what? Wait, excuse me, what? I'm the only daughter. I'm the oldest, and I was their only daughter the whole life, and now I'm not their daughter, and they like don't know. They're just like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Like they're not mad or upset about it. They're just like, it's such a shift for them.
How are your brothers with it?
Amazing. They're wonderful. Yeah. I'm pretty close with my brothers. We're pretty tight, and so they sometimes struggle with the sister thing, but they've definitely changed it to like sibling.
There must be like I guess sibling sounds a bit cold, but there must be a non-binary term for like brother or sister.
I'm not sure, actually. That's actually good. I think I know there's a term for nephew, and it's called nibbling, and I'm like, I love that word. I know, right? Yeah, that's my nibbling, and I'm like, oh, I love this. So maybe something like that. I'm not sure.
Question: if I were to refer someone to you, should I let those people know ahead of time your pronouns so you don't have to do that?
I think it's like kind of a situation. Like for me, like I don't really care, but there are definitely people on the spectrum who don't want that. You know, like they just call them what they are, and you know, if like. There's just some people it's triggering for them, and like everyone is so different in like their journey on that. Like, so if you are referring to someone, I would just use them, they, and just like leave it at that. In my what's called the signature on the email, I put my pronouns in there, and that kind of just like tells people like, oh, well, those are the pronouns that they prefer, right? So
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, exactly, and like. Yeah, it's a tough one because I know some people who are like, yeah, I don't care, like tell everybody that I'm trans and that these are my pronouns, and then there are other people who are like, you know, might not want that information out there, you know? So it's just like being like wary of like everyone's like boundaries and things like that. It's kind of interesting.
I teach and I sometimes have students, and the terms are 3.5 months.
Yeah.
So for 3.5 months, sometimes I just don't know their or
Yeah,
gender.
yeah.
And I just use they, them.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah,
And
'cause
that's
I
the safe
just-
bet,
it's
right?
just easier,
like
yeah.
either use their name or just use something that's neutral, right? Like there are I've had it's been funny. I've medical women who are like, I would just say they because like I just kind of like use that as a broad term, and they're like, I am not a they, I am a she, and like please
That's the
call me a
thing,
she.
yeah.
And I respect that. Like absolutely, like you are she, you are her. 100%. I'm about it. I'm sorry if that made you feel uncomfortable. I wasn't doing it out of like that. I've just like used more neutral terminology in my dialect. And,
But sometimes people get offended if you ask too.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if you're like, oh, what are your pronouns? And they're like, I'm a woman.
Yeah,
And you're
exactly,
like,
right?
Okay, so that's why sometimes I don't ask my students. I just do they, them. And
yeah,
then...
totally. And most people who have an issue with it or like whatever are gonna say something,
Yes,
right? Which
exactly.
is like kind of nice.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like again, it's like this fine line of like, how do we like figure this out? But that's like again, I feel like it's kind of like my due diligence, and as somebody who does have a big voice and is like very outspoken, where I get to educate and like I get to tell people about my experiences so that they get a little bit of perspective on like where maybe someone's coming from that's in my situation, which I think is kind of cool.
You were on a recent podcast talking about this.
Yeah,
right?
We talked about just being non-binary and like what it looks like for me and like how I got to this point, and you know, we got a little bit into what it looks like for like trans people in sports as well, because that's been a new thing for me too, is that I've played women's softball my whole life, and now I'm playing on a women's competitive slow pitch team, and I'm not a girl, so it's been a really interesting process.
Is it part of the queer league?
No, it's out in Langley, so it's a competitive sport thing.
Yeah,
We're going to nationals and stuff.
Oh,
and
it's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun. But it's been interesting because like they're all really great, and I just like told them, I was like, hey, these are my pronouns, and like they're doing their best. But now I'm like in this situation where I'm playing in an all women's league.
Yeah.
And I'm not a girl, but I identify that I wouldn't play on a men's team either, right? Like, if we want to get technical here, I have a vagina, so I'm going to play with the girls. Yeah, but the way that we respect trans athletes, I think, is by respecting their pronouns and still giving them a space to do what they love, which is go play the sport. I play co-ed slow pitch as well, and that's really interesting because it's like, well, I'm in the in-between. And, but also, like, you know.
Is that where they need a certain amount of women on the team?
Yeah, so there's like you have to put a certain amount of women in the lineup, basically, and then like on the field as well. It's like 3 people.
So how does that work for you?
I'm considered like I'm a woman technically in that necessary like in that situation.
Yeah.
But again, it's like making space for me by them respecting my pronouns. That's my biggest thing. I don't necessarily care if I have to like be on the sheet as like a woman. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
My driver's license still says woman. Like I haven't changed that and things like that. But you know, you create that space and that place of like safety for them by giving them the like, oh, you're them, they, okay, let's respect that, you know? And that's all I ask at the end of the day is like that I'm just being respected as who I am as a person, not necessarily what the paper has to say in order for me to play the sport that I love.
So what podcast is that? We'll give a shout out to them.
It's called Straight White Male.
If you want to hear more about Katie's journey into, is it a journey into non-binary?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a gender journey.
Okay, it's
like,
a gender
that's
journey.
literally what it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. If you want to hear more about Katie's gender journey from the past year, check out that podcast, Straight White Male, and the Instagram handle is called
Beyond_Judgment_podcast.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, Katie.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
Let's give a shout out to your Instagram handles.
My chef account is at chef KD_TIGHE.
Okay.
And then my personal account is just KD_TIGHE. So KD Tighe.
Okay, cool. Any websites or anything?
No, I just mostly Instagram.
And you can check out some of their food at Glory Juice Co. What do you recommend on the menu?
The Warm and Hearty Bowl is really delicious, and our black bean brownies are unreal. Yeah, they're so good. They're gluten-free and vegan, so they're really good.
Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, just thanks for listening, and thanks for having me. This was really fun.